Hi. In our first video in the series of Quarreling and Fighting, I was sharing with you a conversation I was having with a client, a husband, who'd gotten into a very bad fight with his wife, one of the worst that they ever had. And when I asked the husband a couple of times, "Oh, why did you quarrel and fight and get so angry with your wife?" He did what most husbands and wives would do in that situation. He says, "Well, it was because of her. She's disrespectful. She wasn't listening. She was being unkind. She was lying and not being accurate." Asked him a couple of times, "Why did you get so angry?" And that's what he basically did. When he and I went to Luke chapter 6, and particularly verse 45, where Jesus says, "Out of a bad heart, bad words come. Out of a good heart, good words come," then my client understood right away that what he was doing was blaming his wife for the origin of his acting badly. And he saw that he was acting badly and speaking badly to his wife, according to what Jesus said, was because of what was going on in his heart, not because of the way that he was being treated by her. And that was very helpful for him to understand that. He'd been blaming her all this time and remaining angry, but when he understood that he had acted badly and spoken badly, not because of her, but because of his own heart, that was very helpful to him, and he soon went to God and asked his forgiveness and asked his wife for forgiveness too, because he was blaming her and shouldn't have. The second video was about reacting. Why did he react so badly to her over the course of that hour? Why did she react so badly to him? That's what generally happens in these quarrels and fights. One person does something. We'll just call one person has an action or has a word, and the other person reacts to that action. That reaction is unpleasant in the mind of the original person, and they react badly, action-wise or verbally, to that person's reaction to their action. And then this person over here hears that reaction, and they react badly to that reaction by reacting badly. And so what goes on for the next minute, hour, day, week is reacting badly. It starts with an initial reaction, but then there's 25 different reactions that take place over the course of that hour as they are battling back and forth to one another, reacting badly, reacting action-wise and behaviorally, and reacting verbally badly too. Initial reaction, but a bad reaction, and then we start reacting badly and talking badly and reacting badly with my tongue because of the reaction that I see that's coming to me from the other person's direction. If you take an hour's quarrel and fight, that's what you're going to find is one action, but probably 25 different reactions to one another. And sadly, what can happen is that reacting can take place over a week as they continue to react to one another badly. And that reacting paradigm, that reacting way of life can take place over many, many years. I grew up in a home, a very dysfunctional home, a very sinful home, a very evil home, an alcoholic home. And basically, that described the first 25 years of my life. Something would happen, and everyone would be reacting badly to the other person's bad reaction. And it never got resolved, and it never settled down, and it never stopped. And that went on for many, many decades. Very, very sadly and very, very destructively, and it's not surprising that my mom and dad, rather, I should say, ended up getting a divorce. And my sisters, who learned how to do that from my parents, went off and got married and divorced a couple times. And God came into my life and began to teach me the things that we're learning here in these videos together. So there's generally, in these situations, an action that the husband, for example, reacts badly to, and then the wife reacts badly to the husband's reaction, and then without intervention and without wisdom, it just goes on and on and on, reacting to reacting to reacting. Wouldn't it be great if we could stop the reacting quickly? if we could stop the reacting quickly, wow, wouldn't those conversations go very differently? In an ideal situation, you've got a husband recognizing he's reacting badly and a wife recognizing she's reacting badly and understanding why. It's a condition of their heart. It's not because of the other person. And they draw near to God to get help. Then in an ideal situation, you've got a husband and wife who are going to God to get help, to react good and well and patiently and kindly. And the quarrel's over in a matter of minutes. That would be great. And that's what the goal of every counseling session is, trying to help a husband and wife both to learn how to do that. By the way, if you have one person doing that, let's say it's the husband in the case, my client, let's say he notices within the first minute or two that they're starting to ramp up and reacting badly to one another. He says to himself, hey, I realize what's going on here, and I know that my heart, that I am not relying and trusting and depending and drawing near to the throne of grace as I'm instructed to do at this point in time. And if he starts to do that and continues to do that, well, then he's going to act and react well over the next minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. And it's very hard to act and react badly to someone who's acting and reacting well to you. And that quarrel and fight's probably going to settle down very, very quickly. It's just really hard to argue with a humble person. And that's what that husband's doing in that situation when he humbly owns up to what's going on in his own heart. He goes to God and gets a good heart by relying and trusting and depending upon him. And he starts reacting humbly and well and patiently and kindly and lovingly, even though his wife is reacting badly. It's really hard to continue to react badly to a person who's humble. And so even one person has the ability to calm those things down when they're getting out of control. If a husband and wife don't learn how to do that, they're going to continue to quarrel and fight for many, many decades and probably end up like my mom and dad, divorced. Why? If you ask the husband why, well, he'll probably tell you because of the wife. If you ask the wife why, well, she'll probably point the finger because I'm married to a jerk. Never having learned that the reason why he acted and reacted badly and why she acted and reacted badly had nothing to do really with the other person. It had to do with the condition, the sinfulness of their own hearts and failing to turn to God for the grace that they really needed. You know, here's another way of looking at this, and that is husbands and wives who don't learn this exert a great deal of energy trying to change the other person. Trying to get the other person to listen, to stop yelling, to change their mind, to think differently. All the energy is being poured out trying to change the other person, trying to get the other person to listen, trying to get the other person to act and not react so badly, trying to convince them and get them to see how foolish they are and how stupid they might be and how ignorant they're behaving. And does it help? I'd ask you, all of your energy and all of your effort in those quarrels and fights and trying to get your husband or your wife to change and to listen, how has it been successful? Probably hasn't been. It's probably only inflamed the matter and made it worse. All that energy pouring out into trying to change the other person. When God wants you to take that energy early and go and redirect it to yourself, by going to God yourself, getting the help that you need, and working on getting him to help you, not to change the other person, but rather to change you. Why would you be going to the throne of grace in that situation? Not for your wife or your husband, but for you. You find that you're reacting badly and acting badly and talking badly, and you're going to the throne of grace to get a good heart. You're asking God to draw near to you so that you can get a good heart and a new heart. And by his presence and power, you will be able then, having received his mercy and grace and kindness, you in turn will be able to act and react by being kind and merciful and gracious, even though she may not be acting kindly towards you. It's pretty powerful. It's actually very, very powerful. And it's sad to see decades and decades of my dad trying to change my mom trying to change her dad, or my dad rather than exercising that energy on trying to be better themselves by going to God, and God is the only one who can help them in that situation. Here's another way that I'd like to conclude by looking at this. When you've got a husband and wife that is quarreling like this, well, the image that I tell them is, well, you've got a window. Mr. Husband, you're looking through your wife like looking through a window, and you're trying to change the other person on that window. You see your wife acting and reacting badly, accusing you, not listening, getting angry, raising her voice. You're looking at that through the window, and you're reacting badly to what you're seeing through that window. Wife, you're doing the same thing. You're looking through that window at your husband who is being such a jerk, and you don't like that, and you like being treated like a jerk, and so you're reacting badly to him because you don't like being treated by a jerk. You're looking and observing at that husband through that window. God would have you do something very, very different and very, very quickly. Rather than looking through that window at the person who's quarreling with you, what God would do would say, hey, stop looking through the window and start looking in the mirror. Don't look at the other person. Look at you. Look what you're doing. You're quarreling. You're impatient. You're rude. You're unkind. You're unloving. You're insensitive. You're bitter. You're resentful. You're unforgiving. You're harsh. You're bitter. Why are you doing that? Look in the mirror. Why are you behaving this way? Well, it's not because of the other person. Now you know by looking in the mirror, you know it's your own heart. And wife, I would encourage you to do the same thing. Stop observing what's going on through the window and how your husband's behaving badly. Rather, put a mirror there and look at yourself. Assess yourself, examine yourself, and ask the question, well, what am I doing? I'm acting badly, I'm talking badly, I'm harsh, I'm angry, I'm bitter, I'm raising my voice, I'm accusing him, I'm calling him names. Well, why are you doing that? Well, we know why. If we've listened to the previous videos, it's not because of him. It's because you have an evil heart, and out of your own evil heart is coming the things that you're coming out of you, are the things that you're seeing in that mirror, and that is evil things are coming out of you, word and action wise. And so you need to exercise your energy on going to God, so that looking in the mirror, you going to God, he would give you the help. And if you go to God, he will go to you, he will come to you, and he will change your heart, and you will be able to speak kindly and lovingly and patiently to him, even though he may not be talking to you in that way. How is that? Well, because you looked in the mirror, you saw you needed God, you were acting out badly because of a lack of God, but when you turned to God and kept on turning to him and relying on him, he changed your heart. And now when you're looking in the mirror, you're watching yourself be patient and kind and sensitive and loving. Why? Not because your husband changed, but because you changed. You looked in the mirror. You saw you were acting out. You saw someone who was acting without God. And I would say the same thing to the husband here. You're looking through that window and acting badly. Look through the mirror and look at what you're seeing, and you have to conclude the reason you're watching this sinful person in the mirror is because you're acting as one who's without God too. You can't blame that on your wife. But if you were to quickly turn to God, draw near to him, go to him in your time of need and ask him for mercy and grace, and as he dispels in you, infuses in you that grace and that mercy and that perspective, then as you change that, you're going to start talking with kindness and mercy and grace and patience with your wife. You're going to look in that mirror and see you acting very, very differently. You're going to see a guy who's now talking patiently, who's acting kindly, who's listening, and who's not harsh. Well, what happened? It wasn't her. It was you. You stopped exerting all that energy looking through the window trying to change her. And instead, you looked in the mirror and didn't like what you saw that it was because you were acting without God. And by going to him, he changed you in the heart. And then what came out of you was much better things. Boy, in an ideal situation, you got a husband and wife who's learning how to do that together, learning how to do that quickly. And those arguments and quarrels don't last more than 5 minutes. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? If you could settle those things down within 5 minutes, and it can happen that way if you have a husband or a wife who are both looking in the mirror quickly, realizing what's going on inwardly and what's coming out of them and going to God, looking in the mirror, going to God, and they both do that, they're going to start changing and being patient and kind and probably apologizing for the way that they talked, the way that they reacted, forgiving one another, and settling it down very, very quickly. And what happens in that situation? When you have a husband and wife who's learning how to do this, here's three things that happen. Hopefully I can remember these three things. The arguing and the quarreling doesn't happen as often. The frequency of it settles down. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be fantastic? That the frequency of these quarrels and fights would diminish radically. Number two, your quarreling and fighting would not last for hours, it would last for minutes. It wouldn't last as long as they normally do. They can go on for hours and days and weeks. But if you go into God like that, not only would the frequency of quarreling and fighting diminish, but the length of them would also diminish. And then thirdly, the intensity and the passion and the destructiveness of these quarreling and fightings would diminish radically as well. They would not be as harmful and as hurtful and as destructive. The destructiveness of those quarrelings would go down. Three things that would happen. The frequency would diminish if you got a husband and wife going to God. Number two, the duration of those quarrels would shorten and come down very, very sharply in that regard. And then thirdly, the passion and the intensity would diminish and come down. That would be great if a husband and wife, by learning these things, would see those three things happen in their marriage. And that would be a great marriage. So if this is a benefit to you, these are things, by the way, that we have to learn. We're not born this way. These are things that the Holy Spirit wants to teach each and every one of us. Husbands teaching the husbands, wives learning as wives, not trying to teach the other person, but learning how to do it on yourself, learning how to do it by yourself with God's help. I hope that's helpful. I know it will be. If you learn that and you practice that, you'll benefit, your spouse will benefit, and if you're doing it together, your marriage will be very, very different. And then you have to teach your children how to do that. And that's another video for another time. Hope this helps.